And I'm hopeful that there actually may potentially be some savings there. I should know that in the next couple of weeks, but just in case people have watched that, it has continued to be a challenge.
So this is with NRT?
It is with NRT.
Okay.
So technically, they are, Beacon Mobility is the name of the country. It's a national company.
So they own, okay.
They own NRT, they own Salter, they own Laidlaw, not Laidlaw, they own Coppola, all the other companies that NRT had absorbed before they were bought out by Beacon. And so the founder of NRT, John McCarthy, was on the call with me today.
Is he
Brought him back into
lower
things.
because of coach?
It is a competitive bid process, right? So certainly when and we had this discussion in January and February, the committee did not award a contract the first time it was brought to them because there were concerns about performance. We pushed back. We put quite a bit of penalties, liquidated damages into the contract and did sign it. So there are factors that we, as the discussion happened publicly, had coach not shown up, the fear is when there's one bidder at the table, there's no ceiling, right? There's no competition. Certainly, coach at the table made NRT sharpen their pencil. In those lower rates, in speaking with them, there are reasons for some of those, age of the equipment, different contract provisions that I think are good in our contract that so it makes sense paying more. We do have, overall, our mileage is considerably more, right? Transporting from kind of northwest end of Salisbury down to Triton is a ride. So definitely, right? Right, so Plum Island, yeah, so there definitely is actual linear miles. It is a bigger contract for sure, and that factors into the overall rates and such. But so yes, competition helps, but there are definitely some questions about the discrepancy. I think the rate that Pentucket received was definitely driven by making sure coach didn't get that contract. And I don't think that's not public information. I mean, that's the nature of the beast with public bidding. How they knew what the number was, I have no idea.
So are you saying that Pentucket was offered a better rate than we were?
Yes.
Okay, so that's kind of crazy because that's 3 towns as well, and I'm sure that they've got to have.
So it's definitely less mileage. That's what I was saying. Like it's overall our per miles per day is higher, but we just pay a flat per run day per run amount. So all of those miles are amortized across the total cost of the contract. So we definitely have more miles. There are other factors like age of vehicles and such that we could change in our specs to bring the cost down. But then there's wait a minute, that doesn't make sense. And there's still a delta there that doesn't make sense. And they acknowledge that today. So I'm hopeful that there could be savings even moving into next year. Yep.
I would just add, I agree with Aaron. Next year, can you make sure Salisbury and Raleigh's not on the same day of graduation?
For the 6th grade?
Yes.
Yes.
As you know, I have a conflict there.
Yeah. And there was lots. Aaron brought that up last night, and it was there are factors that make it particularly challenging for some families, and it was not. It was. I apologize because I don't have a solution, and I'd go back and change it if there was a better solution, but there were a lot of other factors at play that it landed, unfortunately, on the same night. We talked about this last night. Last year, we had 3 separate nights and actually had the principal from the middle school and high school at all 3 of them, which was great to see, those 6th graders see their next year principal as well as their future principal 2 years from now. Loved that. There was a lot of factors ranging from their individual schedules to just other things happening at the school, or it just didn't work this year. But that is still the goal. And I'm sorry that you have that conflict.
Brian, can you?
No, it wasn't me this year. I'm next year.
Yes.
That you're next year. So, okay, so yes, that's right. Yeah,
Next year, can you please make sure that doesn't happen?
Yes. The goal is still to have them on 3 separate nights, for sure.
Okay.
Can you just review the dates again for Pine Grove NES and SES?
Newbury is on Monday the 9th,
Yep.
6 p.m. Pine Grove and Salisbury are both 5:30 p.m. on Thursday the 12th.
I think Pine Grove's one of them's at 5 and the other was at it to your lawyer's trip. They weren't exactly at the same time.
Look at me pretending I don't wear glasses. Where did I write that? That was in my report.
Superintendent report, yeah.
Please stand by. Your call is important to us. Yeah, no, they're both, Pine Grove and Salisbury are both 5:30.
Sorry.
That's okay. So 6 PM Monday, the 9th for Newbury, 5:30 PM on Thursday, the 12th for Pine Grove and Salisbury. Middle school, June 12th, same day at 9 AM on the perfectly sunny field. And Saturday, June 7th, 11 AM for high school graduation, perfectly sunny field. And I will say too, what night was that we were all at the honors banquet? The class of 25 is an incredible, incredible group of kids. And a wildly diverse group of students who work so well together. I mean, they're friends, and it's, Patrick Kelly, the principal, was talking about it in his kind of closing remarks about you've got the kids who may typically be the band kids and the theater kids and the athletes and right, they all work together. They're all friends, going off to incredible institutions. They're going to Duke and Dartmouth and Northeastern and Wellesley, had our first student get into Wellesley in many, many years. So just incredibly bright, incredibly high-achieving group, but also just an incredible group of humans. So be a fun day to celebrate them on the 7th.
I would second that. As I know a great deal of them, as my daughter just graduated last year, this class is a lot of great kids, a lot of great kids. And there's also our Syracuse in there, too.
So the next item is the FY '26 budget development.
So I think this was on here just to say, again, didn't know what this discussion would be when we put the agenda together. But I think the hope was just to have a discussion quickly about kind of I hate the term postmortem, but right, this is the celebration, but to kind of think after the fact, what went well, what didn't go well, are there things that we should be looking at? And this isn't necessarily something we have to talk and decide on tonight. But there's been so many years where we're like, next year we need to fill in the blank, and then we don't get back to it until next year when the budget's unfolding. And if there are things, if there are approaches, what have you, that should or we want to change, I think I would just love to start having those discussions now, right? Now in the quiet times, we have budgets, we're all moving forward. And July 1 is going to roll in peacefully, but are there things, so I think that was the reason, when we decided to put that on the agenda, was just to have that discussion.
It's just about the current year, because I think this is going to come back, because I think a lot of people think everything's settled right now, but the school committee still has $350,000 of undesignated cuts in our budget that we're going to need to decide moving forward. So that's going to come between now and the amended budget that you guys get every fall. Doesn't change the assessments, but could potentially have an impact on students in our schools, and I expect that there will be discussions. So if you're hearing about additional cuts in the future, like in the next 6 months, that's where that's coming from, because we still do have that money that we need to figure out how that's going to shift within the budget to cover that.
I'm glad you brought that up. And so just to confirm how that will play out. So every fall, we issue you a fall adjusted budget. Generally, that's the exact same top and bottom line. Your assessments stay the same, and we move money around, right? We carried a certain amount of money in salary contingency, and we we were assuming we were hiring a teacher at M5, and we end up hiring a teacher at Doctor at 7, or things like that. All of those shifts. In 27 budget, we'll be carrying money in the aggregate for negotiations. That gets filtered back out. So all of those adjustments are made annually. That's the normal routine. This year, there could be a few more adjustments in that. So for example, that $350,871 that deficit, that existing savings we need to make, Bye. Talk about conflicts. So right now, we know on where both the House and the Senate have Chapter 70 at $150 per student. We budgeted it based on the governor's numbers we knew in March, and it was $75 per pupil. So if that stays and makes it through conference committee, we'll get about $160,000 more in Chapter 70. That would help close that gap, but the way it closes the gap is we don't have to decrease those expenditures, and we get new revenue, so it actually changes the top line. It gives us less, we're not cutting, so it's slightly higher expenditures by 160, but we have new state revenues at 160. So again, bottom line net, assessments don't change, nothing changes, and it just filters through. So that will all be, that $351,000 hole still needs to be closed. We're confident in that, I'm feeling confident in that 160 in new Chapter 70. We know we settled, we did renegotiate our healthcare with our Public Employee Committee. And so through plan design changes, we were targeting $300,000 in savings. We saved about $370,000. And so that additional $70,000 accounts for that. So right there, we've got, call it $220,000 of that $350,000. So that will all continue to morph as we go through the state finalizing their budget. Do we get a little more revenue? Hopefully not less than we're assuming. I don't think that is the case. And if more revenue doesn't materialize, then it would have to be other reductions. So we've talked about delaying some curriculum implementation, about $40,000. We still do have, we're running 19 buses. The right number is 21. Newbury is good with the number of buses they have. Both Rowley and Salisbury are short one bus. It happens on a daily basis, and we make it work. But we need one more bus to really make sure we're covering the town in a timely way. So those two buses are still funded in the budget. I'm hopeful that someday we can find the drivers for those. We've asked the NRT to prioritize having backups so we don't have the daily call-outs and rerouting and buses dropping kids off and going back out to pick them up again. So things like that. So we would make those adjustments as we get to the fall once we know the state numbers, adjust the fall adjusted budget, and that's how we would close that gap. But good point that Narissa made, because you will still hear that being talked about. That is not. I've had a couple people from the towns, not town officials, but residents kind of asking that same question about what is that. Who's going to cover that deficit? Is that going to be covered by Newbury or Rowley? Is that apportioned out? And no, nothing changes. As you know, once we give you the budget and you bring it to your town meetings, that is it. That is the number. You can't change it. We can't change it. That is the approved number. So.
No other questions?
I would just add, I'm glad we're having this discussion now, because I don't want it to be World War III again in January. I know Paul and Aaron are both on the finance, right? You guys are on the finance.
I am.
Paul, so just try to come with us as soon as possible. What's your projections of what increases are we looking at? How's the pie maybe potentially get moved back and forth? I think starting now to keep us informed so we can go back to our finance people and say, this is what we're seeing, this is what we're seeing, this is what we're seeing, and not do that in January. Do that now. Right?
Yeah, unfortunately, yes, we can
It's all
definitely.
projections, I understand it.
yep.
Everything's projection, but a projection is better than knowing than
Yep.
not knowing anything.
Yep. Yeah, and as long as there's no, right, Rowley can speak to this, unfortunately, as long as there's no wrinkle in either the enrollment or the minimum local contribution, right? Rowley got whacked because their minimum local contribution went up 6% when Newbury's went up 1% and Salisbury's went up 2%. So as long as none of that happens, I think playing with the numbers, it sounds like there's going to be one more year of that impact potentially. So like we can make some projections, but I've tried to work with the state. We've tried to recreate the numbers. We get close, and close is better than nothing.
Close is better than nothing.
But yes, so as long as people are clear that until the governor issues her budget in fourth Wednesday of January, that's when all of those minimum local contributions and initial Chapter 78 gets issued. But yes, and I mean, I can, the reality is, we are going into negotiating 2 contracts.
Yep.
Of our 2 largest, right, that's 370 of our 450 employees. And you've paid attention around the state. You've seen what's gone on. I guess I would say that I feel good going into this because we have a great working relationship with our associations. The presidents we've always had great working relationships. I don't fear a group that wants to jump out and strike and have that kind of a negotiation. But there will be push for specifically instructional assistants. When we look at the region and the salaries they're making for the work they're doing, there will be a push to kind of bring that up. So that will come at a cost. And so we're going into this year knowing that, right? So I think even we've been talking about, and we'll have a committee discussion with the committee about even our overall approach of should we be asking for all the pitches and all that if we know it's already going to be significant numbers on all of the sunk expenses. So how do we balance the acknowledgement of we need to be talking about what the real needs are and what we should be doing with the reality of what it's going to be and just the nature of the factors leading into the year. So, but yes, I think.
Because I know Christine's on it. I know Paul's going to be open and honest with us. It's just, we have to do, the towns, you know how I feel about this, I've talked to other board members, we have to do a better job of educating the people and understanding why these costs are coming at us a certain way. But we also need to be educated by you guys, since you guys control the budgets. You can have a 6 months projection of some sorts. Christine's going to be sitting on the negotiation, so she can update a lot of the board members, like, yeah, they'll look like they're going to want to go up higher. So just, if we know more, we can get out there and be more proactive on our part, too.
Yep.
And I think to your point, like we think about last year, we were at a spending freeze in October, I believe that began. So that's information specifically related to the functioning of the district, and
Yeah.
that's different information than we sometimes are talking about in the budget
Yeah.
discussions, and it's important to get that out, so.
Yeah, as you guys know, not everyone's a geek like me that watches every single meeting, so I watch everything I can, only to try to stay informed, but if you can help us keep the people informed, and, a lot of people want to give. They gave this last town meetings and votes. They want to make sure the kids have a good education, but we got to do our best we can as the 3 towns leadership, get out there and talk to people too, because I can project that, it's probably going to go up again, and we could potentially be having the same fight, and if we are, we have to be informing the people, because they were not happy this time, but they did it. We just don't have any more wells that we can go to at some point in some of the other communities, I know, so,
And with the building project coming up,
yes.
that's a concern for me. I mean, I obviously, walking through this building tonight, I said to Sherry, we need to get this building project done. But I worry that if Rowley had to be put forth another override next spring, I don't know that it would pass. But again, negotiations will start in September, but the teachers, those 2 bargaining units are going to be on their 3rd year this coming year of a 3-year
Correct.
contract.
So fiscal 26 is year 3.
Correct, so the impact wouldn't be until fiscal year '27.
Yeah, so when we're doing our budget, come this,
Yeah.
right, a year from, or in this coming December, when we start working, just November, December, when we do the budget presentations in January of '26 for '27, that's why we wanted to start negotiations,
Right.
because that's the budget we'll be planning for.
Right,
So-
and then a debt exclusion vote to the 3 towns for the building project would not be potentially until the 28.
20, so the timeline that we,
2028.
so the timeline we talked about with the building committee, did we have building project update? We did, but we can do that. Can I jump to building project update since it's perfect timing? Thanks for the segue, Chris. So we did, shared with the head, the brief update. We will have another building committee in July.
July
Slow
9th.
right now. Thank you. Got your email, confirmed. So we will have a meeting on July 9th. There hasn't been one since I think it was April 30th. We are now in the phase of just getting a bunch of information for the MSBA. The next milestone we're waiting for is scheduling our enrollment meeting. So I've worked with each of your towns to get building permit data, new housing permits, multi-unit, 855 plus, right, all of that data for the past 10 years as well as the next 2 years projected. So thank you to town clerks and planning departments for that. So that information is in. There's capital planning information, there's, you name it, questionnaires. That enrollment is big, right? Because that will drive everything for the next 5 to 6 years. We will have to agree with them. Apparently, it's a conversation, but it's really, they give you the number and you agree or find someone else to get half of the money from. So we will agree a design enrollment, and then everything about that design is based against that enrollment. So they say, we currently about 850 kids on this campus. We're making an argument to say, I've made an argument to say, should be about 1,000, right? There are families who are leaving the district, we know, choicing out because they don't want to send their kids to this building, a brand-new building. They've watched it happen in 3 years at Pentucket. Kids start coming back. So, like, whether it be enrollment changes, just natural attrition enrollment changes, or not choicing out. So if we say the design enrollment is 1,000, then everything from the number of classrooms we're allowed to the size of the auditorium, to the size of the gym, to the size of the cafeteria is based on that enrollment. So that is, we're waiting to hear back on a meeting, the first of, usually it's a few meetings, to hammer that out. So by July, I at least hope to have a sense of what they're driving at. I'll at least know what their original proposal is. We'll be bringing we've talked kind of informally about the figure is about 1.7 million for that feasibility and schematic phase. That is money that we have in stabilization that is not borne on the town and the
Thank you.
taxpayers. Yeah, I'm glad we did that, right?
Yeah, because we have Whittier that we do, yeah.
Exactly. So, right, and I'm glad we did that with, right, part of the fear of having that money is getting to the surprise down the road of saying, wait a minute, we didn't know you were doing something. So we've been very deliberate, right, since 2019 about saying we're moving this money aside so that we can study, knowing there will be a big price tag. How big? Yet to be determined, and it needs to be reasonable. So by July, we'll be able to talk about bringing to the building committee a recommendation to approve for that amount, hopefully talk about enrollment. The second piece is the timeline, back to your original question, shocker, Brian's got a long-winded answer. They assume when they welcome you in December that it will, a little louder? Certainly. I'm sorry, I was stepping back from my microphone. They assume, so we were welcomed in December. They assume it will take you 9 months. It's a 270-day window to complete all the tasks we're doing. They then have a couple months to get their stuff together and get it on an agenda for the MSBA Board of Directors. So they assume if we're in December of 24, that in December of 25, we'd be back at the table being welcomed into the next section. From the very get-go, we've said, we know there are things we don't want to study. We have no other location. Yes, we have to talk about, is it a full reno? Is it a knockdown rebuild? All that stuff we have to study. We've talked about, should we bring 6th grade over? Should we make it a single 7 through 12 campus, not 2 distinct schools, right? All those things get studied. We've said from the get-go, we've got the money set aside. We don't need to wait for a town meeting to appropriate debt exclusion for the feasibility study. So they made no promises up front because they welcomed 22 districts in, so that's a lot of projects. But they have confirmed now, we've said we want to do as soon as possible. They have said and acknowledged that they are now working with us to get all of our tasks done by August, so that we can get on to the October 29th MSBA board meeting. So what that would likely be is if we were approved on October 29th and welcomed into, it's called Module 2, that's designer selection, we would spend a month or two selecting an owner's project manager. That takes us through into January. We would spend a month or two selecting a designer. So it's a safe bet to say that by February, March of 26, we have the design team in place, and that then kicks off the actual feasibility and schematic, which is roughly 2 years. So that takes us to spring of 28.
Okay.
That was a really long answer. Thank you for bearing with me. But I did the building update agenda item as well. So it's kind of like I was multitasking.
Yes, you did a great job. Does
You're
anybody
welcome.
have any
One
questions?
segued into the other.
That's right.
You talking to you?
You got to turn it on, Jeff.
What time, Jeff?
There it is.
I'll help you.
Thank you. I got it. When do you project you be coming to the towns?
So we project likely spring of '28.
All right,
There was
thank
some
you.
scenario, we talked about some scenarios, I would say over the past 9 months, where could we be really aggressive and get there in the fall of '27? In talking to designers now, I just don't, it would be a special town meeting, and I think there is some conversation at a DCC in the past months. I know we kind of talked about what's the ideal time. Is it a spring town meeting, or should it be a fall special town meeting? Make it totally separate, keep it away from, elections and anything else with the operating budgets. There's some value to say maybe it should be a special town meeting in a fall. But if it's, I think there is some value to call it a special town meeting. I think it's really aggressive to think that we could pull it off by late '27, but I think that would be the absolute earliest, and I think that's very highly unlikely. Yeah.
I would prefer 28, just to give
Yep.
the town of Raleigh some
Yep.
breathing room.
Yeah. And I think there's some value to say, right, so if it was the spring of 98, or 98, let's go back in time. If it's the spring of
Are you
20.
teaching that now?
Right, 98, fourth grade. Oh. Just so, okay, Birdwalk was at the Credit for Life Fair at Salem State College with all the juniors from the North Shore. Awesome program that the Institution for Savings does. And a student who I had in fourth grade walked up because she's a teacher at Masconomet. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And of course, she's older, and I'm old too. But thank you for that trip down memory lane. So in 2028, it wouldn't have to necessarily be the spring, right? We could say, let's do the budgets, let's do the elections, let's get our year done, and then say we're going to hold a special election in the summer or June, or it could be let's do it in August. Right. So you look at Hamilton Wenham, they're having a time. They're doing a regional elementary, which I think is the first in this area anyway, bringing, rather than a regional middle school, high school, which they already have, actually having one elementary building for both towns. Just again, smaller efficiencies, and there's been all kinds of complications. So they're going on to their second meeting this spring. So, right, a meeting can be rescheduled. It doesn't have to fit. It's whenever we ultimately decide, so.
I feel like the fall, everybody's back to school, the sports are starting, all the parents are happy, everybody's optimistic. That might be better than at the end of the year when everyone's just looking for the school year to be over.
Absolutely, yeah.
Graduation.
And summer's tough to get everyone
Yeah.
here, people are traveling. So I think a September vote, how that works into the grand scheme, could be really good. I don't know if we're ready in February of '28, do we want to wait till September of '28? So it also, the MSBA is a wonderful partner, right? If they're going to give us, we know it's at least 47.5% of this. It'll likely be 50 north of 50% once we get incentive points. If they're going to give 50% of a however many $1 million building, we play ball. But it is a fairly prescribed process, so we are very much at the mercy of their timelines. And again, with 22 projects in the pipeline, yeah.
If I recall, Pine Grove's debt exclusion vote took place in May. That, it was part of their May election.
I think it was in the part of the regular town
Yes,
meeting.
it
Yep,
was, yeah.
Yep. And that may be too, right? So we may say, you know what, it's easier to we expect everyone to be there anyway. Let's get everyone to town meetings. It's good for democracy, right? Let's get everyone out to vote. It's good for democracy, and then we could do that, so. Can I say one more thing about the budget as I'm sitting here realizing something that I reported last night to the committee? So for the current year, fiscal '25, just in case you watched the meeting, I know you watched the meeting, or here, so the current year became very challenging fiscally. So You know, we had a director of finance that was here from March of '24 to March of '25. He adopted or took over a budget that had been developed by the prior director of finance. He left in March. We have an interim, Dave Bertolino. I think he's come to one of these meetings. Longtime retired director of finance and operations, Acton Boxborough Medway. He came on in March. Long and the short of it is the reporting that we had received up and through March was inaccurate. It didn't, nothing would have changed had we known earlier. All of the expenses would be the same. We're $550,000 overspent on special education costs this year, just between transportation, contracted services, and out-of-district placements. You know that world.
I do.
Right?
I don't miss it.
Right? Needed, important, justified, warranted, yes. We've accounted for the majority of that, the transportation costs, the out-of-district placements. In next year's budget, we knew that was happening. It wasn't being accounted for accurately this year. So when Dave took over in March, we have now spent 2 years. It feels like 2 years. It has only been 2 months. But it some sleepless nights on our part trying to make sure that we could close this gap. But if you look at the reports in last night's school committee meeting, from the May 1st Finance Subcommittee meeting, there's a cover sheet on a general report. Our general fund report shows a $710,000 hole, overspent by 710. That's not in actuality because there's some other things that need to be changed in the accounting that are now will be corrected at year end and set up differently for next year. That gap is really about 87,000 on paper. We have other revenue sources through increased state aid, school choice, and the ability to take and borrow up to $150,000 out of capital stabilization to offset some increased repair costs. So if you factor those in, we're really $375,000 to the good. So just so if you hear about that, the real number is that bottom line. Our system right now won't report that way, and we've always made sure that our system reports, we don't generate the finance reports. It's not a doctored Excel. It's literally spit out of our closed system accounting, so we can say this is real. But for many reasons, including a change in the software provider and the way they encumber payroll and deductions, has created a $267,000 deficit on paper that there's no way we can change until we close out the year. We just know it's showing that we're spending money that's not really being spent. So again, I feel very good about the future. I think you met, did Rich Poor come to one of these? Rich is still working in Haverhill, but he is joining us as of July 1 officially as the Director of Finance and Operations. Has been working closely with us, is involved in everything pretty much at this point, and Dave Bertolino has done incredible work in closing that gap, and I'm very confident moving forward that the improvement with the systems, the structures, and the reporting will be far more accurate in the future. So just in case there's any questions about that, if you hear about that, and anyone has any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. If you have questions now, or if you want to reach out and ask questions, I'd be happy to answer them. So.
I'm going to send out a schedule for the DCC meetings for going into next year, but I would also like for the 3 towns to consider picking a day so that we can do that joint. I'd like to have that going forward, that whether we have good years or bad years, I think it's great for the town and the schools to show that we are working together and we're a community, and and that because I think it helped Brian and Narissa going up and explaining the regional agreement as to why Rowley's was higher than Salisbury. And
Are you talking about I call it the joint meeting like that
Yes.
we had back in April at Town Hall at Pine Grove?
exactly, I would
Town
like
Hall?
to have that going forward.
So in the
just to-
spring, we're talking like spring of '26?
Yes.
Okay.
And going forward into, So we're going to set a schedule for the DCC. I would like to have that
Be on the schedule.
be on the schedule so each town knows that that's coming. And I just think it's a great way to explain to people the regional agreement and why one town swings one way or another. And I think the more, as Mike had put it, the more we allow people to understand how these finances are made up, the better they'll understand it. You know, that it's not the school's fault or the town's fault as to why these numbers swing the way they are. And I just wanted to say that I was watching the House with Senator Tarr and a bunch of senators around Massachusetts that were fighting for special education, especially the circuit breaker. And I know they put a lot of them on hold and everything, but it was just great to see more than just our legislators fighting for that. And I think as more and more towns become hold harmless, you're going to see more and more legislators having to stand up and fight for the same thing that ours are. So I know that Kirsten Kastner and Senator Tarr are fighting hard for Triton as best they can, you know, so, and I know the DCC should be what we are making it here, and I know some things can get heated or not heated, but at the end of the day, you know, we can agree to disagree and respect each other, and I know whether it gets heated or not, we're all in this for the same thing, for the people of our communities and the kids of our schools. It takes a village to do what we do. I know people laugh when I say that, but as you see, it took all of us to get those overrides passed and to get people to the polls and to town hall. We were there till 7:45 trying to rallying people just to have a quorum. So when we make those calls, people showed up and we were able to have our town meeting. So I don't know if anybody else has anything.
I just have a question. Paul, you do the minutes for these meetings, correct?
Yes.
Is it possible to get a copy of your minutes, like, within a couple of weeks after the DCC? I mean, I take notes, but I present back to the board, but you do such a great job, and I'm always afraid I'm going to miss something. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yep.
is it possible?
I'm trying to do them live and faster so that they'll be out faster, so.
Perfect. So would we get them through Nicole? Like, would your assistant send them to us, Brian? Okay. Like I say, I take my own notes, but
Yeah, Nicole's leaving.
she,
Nicole's
what?
leaving. Yeah.
Oh, no.
Yeah, so you will have a new face.
I love
She
her.
is,
She's great.
she's phenomenal, hard to replace. I actually have been interviewing her the last couple of days. We have a group. She is going to be working closer to home. She travels 45 minutes on a good day. On bad days, it's an hour plus. And so I had 3 great years. She's been absolutely phenomenal.
phenomenal
Has
to deal
been
with.
great with revolutionizing the way we do things in our office as far as processes and personnel. So looking for someone now to pick up that slack. I actually have some great candidates, so I'm feeling good. But
Did you have a little thing for her or anything before the end of the school year?
trying to figure that out timing-wise, so she'll be here through like mid-June. So yeah. But certainly if you want to send something or well wishes or whatever, we'll include that, yeah.
Send her something.
But yeah, so definitely, we can share those out, Paul. And again, I think we can, if we share them unofficially, right, it's easy, it's just I kind of hear the notes.
Right, 'cause you don't
at this
vote
point.
on them at this meeting.
You don't vote on
No,
them,
it's
so,
just-
yeah.
you do a great job,
Yeah.
and I'm always afraid I'm going to miss something, or I'm
Yeah.
not going to explain it correctly, because I like to use those notes with my notes when I present to the Board of Selectmen.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, it could be, Paul could share them directly if that is easier, or,
Trying to do it right now.
okay.
But
Gotta love
isn't-
technology.
Christine, isn't it Sherry's turn to share all that?
Send them to all three.
no, I'm the Triton girl on the committee, on the Select Board.
If I was you, I'd be trying to pass that torch now to the new chairman.
I did,
Pass
I
some other
did, I
stuff to
did,
me,
I
thank
did, I did pass other stuff to her. The Personnel Advisory Committee, that's your baby now.
And as always, you can reach out to myself and Narissa and Brian, and you guys know that anyways.
Yep.
We're open to whatever you guys need us to do.
Can I ask a question? So in thinking about future budget developments, right, it was a wild year, so there was, right, I mean, Triton overspends, I mean, I think there's a general understanding in this group that, understanding why, right? Our budget has gone up precipitously, and I think you all understand that it's not just tucking money away in corners. But I think there was discussion about austerity budgets, right? I mean, it got heated in circles. And I guess my question would be, is there a better way that we can share information with this group that better equips you to answer those questions? And maybe you feel equipped to answer the questions. I don't have evidence to say that you can't. But is there something that would be helpful, and not even like to your point, Mike, about when we get into the budget to say actual numbers, right? Like, we know healthcare is going up this much and personnel is going up this much, but to help you better understand our overall $54 million spend that maybe isn't translated through the budget document itself. Is there I think the age-old question of why does it cost more to educate less students is
That's the big thing
right,
out
is a
there.
perennial question, and I feel like it's been a while since we've done a presentation on that, but I feel like we're due in the fall to having those discussions.
I think maybe for the residents to see our school committee members at a selectmen's meeting
Okay.
a couple of times a year. Narissa came and you came, I forget who else. But Paul Lees wasn't there.
And would you say
Yeah.
to be present?
Yeah.
Or
just
to answer specific questions?
Just to come, just so our residents get to see our school committee reps and ask them questions.
Kind of similar to now with our new Whittier School Committee rep,
Yep.
Cesar Paglia. He comes to all of our meetings. And
Oh, he does?
Yeah.
Do you have space on
So if Whittier happens to be on the agenda, he comes anyway, even if Whittier's not on our agenda. But when Whittier's on the agenda, when I was the chair this past, I called him up after he got in. And it's just very helpful to hear from the school committee
Yeah.
reps. I'm not suggesting that the Raleigh reps come to every single Board of Selectmen's
Yeah, yeah.
meeting, my God, no.
But just to,
But
so
maybe
more
a-
just in general information,
Yeah,
not?
yeah.
An update once in a while, something
Yeah.
like that. That's what Caesar's going to be doing.
Okay.
Christine, Salisbury, we have Linda twice a year on our agendas. So twice a year, she comes and gives us an update.
Right.
And that's what
yeah.
we'll do, we'll put them on.
And it,
But not just always Narissa. It seems like everything gets dumped on Narissa. So it would be nice for them to see all
I
our,
Like maybe
understand that,
rotate
but-
through.
all our,
but I
yeah.
understand that, but all 9 of us,
No, not all 9, just the Raleigh.
all 9 of us represent all 3 towns. And that's what we have to make sure that, so if Raleigh can't, if your Raleigh resident, I mean, Raleigh contingent can't make it, I don't want you to say, I don't want the person from Newbury.
No, we
no,
would
no.
never do that, no.
But
of
the
course
thing
not.
is people have to understand that all 9 of us represent all 3 towns, not, I'm a member of Salisbury, but I'm going to fight for Raleigh and Newbury's kids and towns just as hard as I do for Salisbury's.
You're all welcome to join us.
Yeah.
We just have to get some visibility.
And a lot of
Kidding.
our members don't feel comfortable standing up and,
Yeah.
so I never want to make anybody do anything and feel uncomfortable. So it's always Narissa or I, or even Erin would be willing to go.
Yeah, I don't
And
care who
other
comes then. It
people
just-
don't
yeah.
feel as confident, like Caitlin and Kelly may not feel as confident to go up and speak about it. But we can make that, I've been going for years, even when Deb and Dina were here, I was always.
You've been on the school committee for years.
Right, but I was always asked to go, and I always had the freest time to show up.
You used to come to my PTA meetings when I was
I-
the principal at Pine Grove.
I used to yes, I did, because I figured the best way to know what's going on in the school is go to
Right.
the PTA meetings, you know? I was like Mike. So we
It's- yeah,
can,
just a suggestion, and we can work with you. Sherry sets the agenda, so we.
absolutely,
we'll work
and
with you
we'll
guys
find
to
out
see.
who would like to
Some
go.
updates during the year.
Yep.
Because
And I
otherwise
go
the school
twice a
committee
year.
is villainized.
Yep, and it'd be nice for Newbury as well, I mean, for school committee members to go there as well. They haven't reorganized yet, so I'll find out who the chair is and find out if they want to do that as well.
And it's another avenue for open communication.
Absolutely.
And an opportunity for our Board of Selectmen to potentially ask questions too.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, and even if your finance committee would like somebody to show up, we can do that as well.
Yeah,
That's good.
always happy to show up.
Whatever the towns would like, because Brian would show up as well.
I love
Yeah,
talking.
just more
How many times did you have to come to the microphone at our town meeting?
That was the first, that's been a while since I
Yeah.
got dragged in.
Like
It was
4 or
fun.
5 times you were back and
Kept trying to
forth.
sit down.
I'm
and-
not going to comment on that situation.
So I don't
I'll
even
mute my
know,
mic.
I don't even know if that's something at one of the meetings the rep can explain too, is the regional agreement and, you know, what three factors, you know, just so it's there on video so anybody can access it whenever they want. Because I think the more information we get out there, the better off everybody's going to be. That we're all open and honest about everything, you guys with the towns and us with the schools.
Yeah, just a suggestion, if there's some updates during the year, we'll invite you, or whoever
Whoever
wants
can
to
make it from
come.
whatever town.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's just the way we want to make it, that if Erin shows up and she's from Salisbury, no one knows she's from Salisbury.
I think people understand that it's one unit that's advocating for all the kids, but I also think that they're going to want to see their elected officials
Yeah,
from their town
absolutely.
as well.
And one thing I want to point out is that recently, Mike, Sherry, Alicia, Bill DeMayo, the Select Board member, the 3 of our boards have been getting together or communicating on a group text, different things back and forth, and we plan to like meet for breakfast occasionally, just so we're all on similar pages with each other and learning about what's happening in our other towns as well. It's been very helpful.
I think it's great, because then if Mike or Salisbury has known something that you guys need or would like to,
Mike knows everybody in all 3 towns.
But also, I have to say, Mike was so supportive of us for our override. I mean, you asked us a million times, what can I do to help you? What do you need? Do you have any questions? And
I mean, Mike
us
was,
sitting here talking about the override. that-
Mike was educating Raleigh people
Absolutely.
on why the override needs to
Oh, it's
pass.
brutal.
3A, I know you've talked to people in Raleigh because of his connections with softball and all that stuff, so it was helpful, really
Well,
helpful.
as you guys all know, we're all tied together with our largest budget. One town weeks, it affects us all.
Yep.
Affects all our kids, so we all work together regionally. You know, I talk to Mr. Walker just as much, and he gets mad that I call him Mr. Walker, but it's out of respect.
Come on, there you go. I have been on the board for a long time, and I have to really remark, the school especially has worked very closely with the towns for a long time. But in all the years I have been selectman, I don't think I've seen the towns work as well together as they did this last cycle, and it was so gratifying. And the results showed. The results were great. So everyone should really feel good about it.
it takes a village.
And I will say, to take it back, our portrait of a learner, like everything we're talking about is, I don't care what your zip code is. I don't care what grade you are in. We are Vikings from the moment you enter school age through the moment you walk across that stage, and don't care. Again, I don't care about your home address. Like, we are us. And so I think the opportunity to have that from top down with select boards meeting and talking, and committee members and Salisbury and Raleigh members and Newbury members showing up at Raleigh town select board meetings, all of that is, the more it's a we, gosh, it's a nut that we've been trying to crack since 1967, when the district was regionalized. It's just the nature of a 3-town region is hard. So I echo that, Mr. Walker. It's phenomenal to see. And certainly, if there's anything I can do to help, by gosh.
But I also, doing this way, we are working together. It could potentially help us with the original agreements, the things that we know that are broken, but we know at this point in time would never pass town meeting. Working together and showing the people in all 3 communities that the leadership of the towns are working together to try to make their community better and help out with the budget of the schools and stuff. may allow the residents of the three towns to say, okay, well, it is in our best interest to work together, all three towns. When one's hurting, the other one can help. And that's something that we need to, again, that's what I've been pushing for, because Ronnie's right. She has said it to me many times. If Newbury's hurting and potentially couldn't pay for their portion, it affects the Salisbury kids just as much as the Newbury and Raleigh kids. So we need to work together to make sure we're all physically strong and moving forward, because every one of our kids are all tied together. I mean, my daughter's closest friends are in Raleigh, they're not in Salisbury. So that affects my daughter. So same with one of my daughter goes to Pine Grove and the other one goes to Salisbury. So what Pine Grove does affects my family. So that's where I try to show people in all three towns that I know I went to school with. And like I was talking to Nate the other day about it, that we all need to work together at the end of the day. Because at the end of the day, if we fight with each other, it's only going to make it worse for all of us. If we all can sit and, agree to disagree on a lot of matters, but our common goal is here for the kids, and make sure we can fund our kids through not only the school, because you're right, Sherry, on that, is the police and fire also serves our kids. The senior centers serve our residents, so we all need to work together and make sure we're strong communities that can work together.
Yeah, we can't lose sight of the town departments as well. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
But that's where, with the original agreement, if we could say, oh, well, I'm just using an analogy here, Raleigh can't pay the $100,000 that they were assessed. Okay, you go to Newbury and Raleigh, okay, this year, Newbury and Raleigh need to help, Salisbury and Newbury need to help Raleigh. When the following year, Newbury might be the one that needs the help. And get our people to understand, like, we might be subsidizing another community, but we're subsidizing another community for our kids, to make sure our kids have an education and they're strong. Because, like Raleigh, a lot of people came out and said, well, the test scores of Raleigh, because, one person always pushes that. Well, okay, well, let's work together, make sure our test scores are the best in the whole world. Look, we can do this. Make a lot of the private school kids that from Newbury go to private schools, make them want to come and Triton. But we all have to work together to do that. That's the only way we're going to achieve that matter. In which I have talked to many of my friends, it's your kids, you have a right to do it, but when you take a kid out of the school system, you internally are hurting the school system. This is how it is. I understand you want your kid to have your best education, we all do. But if you're taking a pupil out of the system that we get reimbursed for, it's a double-edged sword that you're creating. And that's what some people need to understand. I've talked to a lot of my friends whose sons go to St. John's Prep. My cousin graduated from St. John's Prep. But like I said, as soon as you took that kid out of that formula, now you just took away a pupil. That's why your taxes are going up.
So maybe one thing to focus on is the scores and why they are what they are.
Yeah, and because if you think about it, I'm not saying all the kids that go to private schools are high testers, but a good portion of them are.
Because we get those comments a lot. That's
Yeah.
like the number one issue that,
In which,
Right to us.
one of the candidates were running, I had a private conversation with him, really, as you guys know, a deep conversation with him. And I tried to show that, hey, your kids were school choiced. Your kids your choice did negatively impact the Triton school system. But it's your choices, it's your child, you have a choice to do whatever you want with your child. I would never say that, but don't sit there and complain after you make a choice. That's my issue with some people. You made that choice, and now you want to come to me and complain about it? That was your choice. And that's the things that I think regionally we need to work on.
I have just one final comment. When we had I call it the joint meeting with the school committee and the select board, although Cliff Pierce was in the audience, it was really nice that Alan McRae came, Nicola Perrier, and Mike Estuccio came to the rally, that evening event. That was really, really nice. Not that the principals need another night out, I just thought it was very impactful, and it was really nice to see them there.
And they actually, all of them came to all of them. Two of I think it was Beth and Patrick, couldn't be at the rally. They, I think all five of them were there in Newbury. And then on the Zoom, I don't think they jumped on the Zoom one, but they all intended
I
to be.
just thought that was really
Yeah.
nice that they
Yeah.
came and they showed up, and for me personally, it was nice to see them.
And we have a good leadership team right now. There
Yeah.
was one shift at Newbury Elementary. Beth Yando is retiring.
I know.
So we have a great, her name is Patricia Hebert. She's already been there a lot, and I think is going to step right in and kind of keep the school flying, so.
Well, Beth did an amazing job.
Did.
She really
She
did.
did, for sure.
I just wanted to make a comment based off of the discussion on the test scores. I hope that when we're looking at Triton, that we're not just focusing only on test scores. We want to make sure that our kids are able to be productive when they leave the school, regardless of what direction they choose to go into, that they feel valued and that they feel like they're part of the community, and that they're able to go on and be successful. I don't want the test scores just to be the only thing that we focus on making improvements on. I want to make sure that they're able to have a livelihood and feel like they've been successful.
And well-rounded.
Exactly, and have opportunities.
And we do stress that because our kids are all successful, they've all been through Triton. But that's the main point that people keep coming to us.
Community, I know, I get it,
You know,
because I see
so
that, I see the
we combat it as
comments.
best we
Yep.
can, but at
The
some point you have
comments
to
on
say, you know
Facebook,
what,
yeah.
I don't know why it is what it is, so we'll
I'll be honest with
look
you.
at it this year.
2 of my 3 kids who graduated, all 3 went to Triton. 2 of them were horrible MCAS scores, and they are very successful adults functioning in society with good careers.
Well, that's why MCAS is only a snapshot. in that-
Exactly.
As you know, Christine, it's
Yeah.
only that snapshot in that one moment. It should be over the kid's whole
And-
year of growth.
And we always tell, parenting has a role in it too.
Right.
It's not just the school that's going to
Right.
make your child successful or a failure. It's the parenting too.
Yeah, so I would say, very high level, not to jump into this conversation tonight, but not to say that all our teachers are perfect, right? We all have areas to grow, myself included, but the school, we as an institution are sending kids to Dartmouth and Tufts and Northeastern, and, right, so those families that are choosing that, we have a broad family base of, I would say, across our 3 communities, we have a broad spectrum of families' involvement and investment in education and the importance of it, right? So there will always be a challenge to make, right, to say universally all of our scores, and we can say, okay, compare Triton to Pentucket, 2 very wildly different districts as much as they may look similar on paper. So it is hard, but I agree. I was taking notes and things to talk about. Those are great presentations to have at DCC. So it's information you have, and if it's like, hey, you know what, we're going to come and have you do that in the town, great, we'll come do it. But to have those conversations, so it's not just airing the debate on Facebook, where we can be providing the information.
Right.
I mean, we had the 10% banquet the other night, and that's only 10% of our students and the amazing things that teachers spoke about that they were capable of doing. I mean, we have other students that weren't in the top 10%, but they've done amazing things as well. I think we have incredible teachers here, and just the work that's being done here, and seeing this, I mean, because they put out, Brian puts out where every single student had applied to and where they got accepted, and the schools that they've been accepted to is just amazing every year when I see that.
Is that the honors banquet? Is that?
So that's the top 10%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When I worked in central office, that was always one of my favorite
Amazing.
events to go to.
A little shorter now with smaller classes.
Yeah.
It's nice because theoretically it's supposed to
Just
be
to hear the-
3-minute speeches.
Those teachers who the students chose
Mm-hmm.
to speak on their behalf, it was just one of my favorite events to always be at.
And not always high school teachers, right?
Right.
This year we had a middle school teacher and,
Right, and it was a 7th grade teacher
Yep.
that was selected that made such an impact on one of the students, and it was great to see that.
Back in the day, there were elementary teachers
yeah.
that spoke.
I remember
Yeah.
Mr. Colombo going
I
up
was just
there.
going to say Steve Colombo. You took it right out of my mouth.
Brian, just a question. Being an ex-teacher, do classrooms now move as a basic unit with whatever the 14 to 16 to 18 people, or is there still group learning that exists in classrooms anymore? You don't have to, just kind
Yeah.
of an observation.
At a high level, yes. a classroom, whether we're at the first grade or the seventh grade, or I think it's different at the high school, generally move through the grade level standards over the course of the year. The craft of teaching is how you move your 14, 18, 21 students from point A to point B. So yes, logical progression, trajectory, yes. It doesn't look the same for every student,
And that can differ in different classrooms?
100%.
Perfect.
Yeah. At the high school, obviously, when we talk about we're offering AP chemistry versus CP chemistry, very different, same content, the depth in AP is significantly more. I think at the high school, classes tend to move a little bit more kind of synchronous, not the right word, asynchronous, that's now a bad word, right? Kind of a little more logically of a progression. Elementary, especially, right, that K through 2, where early literacy, teaching to read, all of that is much more, gosh, what a craft. I mean, an early primary teacher and the work that they do on those early literacy and those early math skills is definitely not linear. Yeah.
I would also say, as you guys know how I feel about standardized tests. I think they're junk. You know, you go throughout the world, the best schools in the world don't have any of that. So it's just, it's a snob test. That's how I feel. And I've always felt that way. And I'm very open and honest about it because, you know, there's a lot of kids who would not test high, but
Yeah.
extremely successful. So, you know,
They
it's,
get anxious, they just don't test well, some
yeah,
kids.
or they just, you know, they really hate the English class. And they're not going to test high on it because they really hate it, but they're extremely good at math. Yeah, but that being said, it just, the communities that are around us, when we get kind of likened to them, trying to say it in a really nice political way right now, they're not as diverse as Triton,
Correct.
by no means. When they get like one or the other regional, which I know your kids go to it, but I mean, they're extremely, all three wealthy communities. The dynamics are not that in Triton.
No.
And these kids get to be together and pull each other up and help each other. That's what people, you know, I was really upset when people were saying what they were saying about Triton. It's like, listen, as a Triton kid, I know the dynamics. And they're not Newburyport, and they're not West Newbury. They're not Amesbury. Amesbury's probably the only one close to us with the diversity of economic and all kinds of different backgrounds that are coming into, molding into the school system. And our teachers are being very successful getting these kids out with education, job placements, college placements. That's the things that no one was talking about. It's like, okay, well, you could sit there in regional Massachusetts test scores. Well, you know what? Take that test score, go outside, take a lighter and burn it, because it's not saying what that kid is. And that was my frustration when I heard people talk about that, because I know many kids, Mr. Walker's son is one of them. I'm one of them. Spike Ford. And I can go down the list of kids who basically stunk, which you know, in school. She was our friends. She knew where we were in the class. But you know what? We're all pretty successful people now. That's why I just hate those standardized tests. I know you got to have the MCAS and everything else, but you know what? Take all those tests and throw them away. They don't really matter in the real world.
I will say one of the things I'm excited about with the Portrait of a Learner is it's designed around core competencies. So there's 5 roles and 6 dispositions that we want for our students. Does MCAS and all these other things factor into someone who's resilient? Yes, but it's a factor, not how are we measuring a student's resiliency. And as a role, as a community member, how are they developing? So I'm thrilled because I feel like it's a simple, well, it's been a lot of work and a lot of process, but a kind of a simple kind of graphic and representation that could be really powerful across the board in the work we do, whether we're talking about select boards or school committee or first graders or 12th graders. Pretty powerful.
I also wanted to just mention that we've talked a lot about kids going off to college, but we still have a strong contingency of kids that are going into trades or starting their careers right off as soon as they graduate. So I just wanted to make sure that we didn't overlook discussing that.
military.
In the
And
military.
military, exactly, so.
And I should say, I should have mentioned that. So we had our second full cohort of senior internships. So Karen Cassidy, office right over there, was hired, is this her third year? Gosh, I think this is her third year here, as part of the guidance department, but as a career counselor. And so has done a ton of work in partnering, whether it's Northern Essex. So we have kids who are coming out and are a semester away from getting their associate's degree that they did concurrently with their high school career, right? So I mean, just a ton of work. Had internships this year, everywhere from banks to Salisbury Fire Department. I know Salisbury Fire Chief and Captain will be connecting with the Newbury and Rowley Fire Departments because they were incredibly successful. I mean, this student was a firefighter, right? Went to fires, did not go into burning buildings, but went to emergency calls. So we want next spring, we want, so it's a 25, so it's senior year, spring semester, a 25-hour-a-week internship. And we had 19 students out in everything, like I said, from firefighting to a bank and a marketing department to you name it. So just, again, to that point of we send students off to amazing institutions, colleges. We also have students who get into amazing institutions and aren't able to go for multiple of reasons. And there are students who never apply and go off and do an internship and are incredibly successful opening their own businesses in the trades or anything else. So it's varied, right? There is no linear path. And I think our district broadly represents that. And there are neighboring districts that, from all expectations, it's you will go to college, and there are kids who are being forced there. And right, you don't see the statistics. So my wife may or may not work in a college counseling center, and there are kids who can and have no interest in being there, right? And that doesn't do well for anyone, especially the $250,000 that their parents are spending to send them there for absolutely no reason, and they're failing out and they're ending up, with mental health challenges. So, right, so we work with a student, we find their craft, and we work them and move them toward that. So,
I will say I was at the firehouse when the student was there.
yeah.
And he was learning a lot. There was a call, I think, down at the beach. They threw him in the truck, and he went with them. So
He went to some brush fires. He didn't go any burning buildings. He went to brush fires. He went to medical,
And we, in Jen Rock attendance with their, their youth coalition, that
Yeah.
she has that whole, and CJ Roosh and everyone else.
In the summer.
I think the book too, right? They have a waiting list right now.
Yep.
How
Yeah, I
many
know they were
kids
gonna
that
reach
wanna
out about
work
the other.
with the fire department, lifeguards, police. It's
Yeah.
a whole thing. Jen's doing an amazing job with that, and that's another thing, that kids are coming right out of school and going to move into, like your kids at the Bridge Academy, right? Yeah.
Oh, yeah, he went to Westfield.
Yeah, so
And then, yeah.
they're going to be police officers. That's one thing people don't see about Triton is there's farmers.
Yeah.
Some kids are going to be a farmer. So that's the test scores that people don't see. And that's why I love Triton for what it is. We're a unique community,
Yeah.
all three of us. And I actually pick on some of the other elected officials in other communities that we're more diverse than them.
Yep.
Even though they like to put this big bubble out that they're diverse, they're not. They're not. The Triton community is, and we wear our hat well on that.
Yep.
And that's why it's important that it doesn't matter what town you come from or anything, we're all Triton. And I just wanted to bring up another thing, that all three towns vote for all of the school committee members. So we just want to always say that no matter who shows up, they're representing you.
And I'll say that's even as hard to explain to people in my community as much as the regional agreement. They're like, what do we mean we vote for a Raleigh or Newbury person? Because they represent your child. That's why.
And that's why I'm glad when Rowley, Newbury, and Salisbury invite all of the candidates to come in candidates night and stuff, so that people can see the other towns' representation that they have. Okay, anybody have anything else?
Can I have one final last word? So as I was emailing myself notes as we were talking, so it was just reported that we've been talking about the need for a Chapter 70 review.
Yes.
So the Senate just approved unanimously, Senator Lewis, who is the chair of the Education Committee, it's not, there was a full commission, but there is a study that was agreed unanimously to be completed by June of '26. So it'll be DLS, has to be reported out, it'll DESE and Division of Local Services, public hearings, draft report due June 26th. So hopefully that makes it through conference committee.
Yeah.
May not be the perfect panacea, but it means they've got to spend a year studying it and actually talking about it, which
Yeah,
is
and that's the same
progress.
Conversations that Senator Tar was there today, too.
Well, it's election year for some people, so I think we're going
We'll
to see
take
some
it.
movement.
We'll take it. So that's Department of Ed and Division of Local Services statewide. So Senator Lewis is the education chair, so that was just hot off the press from the Senate, just finished their debates on their 1,100 amendments. So we'll hope that makes it through conference committee.
I'm sorry, I don't know what you're saying. All right, I will send out a list of dates and get confirmation of when that everybody agrees with those. Okay, have a nice evening, and if I don't see people, have a nice summer.
Too.